to standing again. Bringing your feet together at the front of your mat and Tadasana. Just feel the muscular energy in your legs. Breathe in and out. So the outer edges of your hips are moving in towards the midline, compacting your pelvis. That the crown of the head gives you length through the body, but there's Mula Bandha, the root, lifting up the pelvic floor, the pit of the belly moves up and back. There's a spreading and opening across the chest. So you can now bend your right knee and bring it in towards your belly, reaching the right arm inside the thigh, grab the big toe with your yogi toe lock, which means two fingers go inside of the right big toe and the thumb wraps around the two fingers. Bring your left hand onto your left hip bone and try to firm that left leg, stepping on the 3 points of the foot, big toe mound, baby toe mound, center of the heel. You optionally can lift the foot in line with the knee so it stays bent, but you bring it out and away, or you can straighten the leg, completely extending the knee. And breathe in, open, define the pose, really bring your right arm into your right shoulder. And then bend the knee, release the toe, and step the foot down. Exhale. You can start with the hands on the pelvis. Really feel how when the hands are on the hips, there's a sense of grounding, not grinding, but groundedness through the legs. And that there's a yield to gravity, so that you're not militaristically trying to hold your chest up from the ground, but there's that relationship of gravity moving through you into the earth, and then there's levity. That the earth energy moves back through the body. How do you think water gets to the top of a tree? It's called levity, right? So it's not all about gravity. There has to be a little levity in life too. So with your hands on your pelvis, there's this exchange. It's also a law of physics, equal action. When you step on the ground, it matches, it moves up to meet you, so to speak. So bending the left knee, bringing the knee in towards your belly. You can bring the left arm inside and take yogi toe lock around the left big toe. Before you even move the foot up or extend the leg, can you pull yourself up by your bootstraps? Pull that knee up a little higher. Yeah, so you're standing already upright. Your torso is not leaning forward. Bring your right hand onto your hip bone and then either parallel the shin to the ceiling or straighten the leg. That your nose is over your toes of the right standing foot. You haven't gone back in to keep on trucking. You know, you're really there. And then bend the leg, release the foot, and step down. Go ahead and write down what you learned. sort of, yeah. How did you leave yours? Please. What's your name?
Estelle.
Estelle.
Can I ask a question for you? Is there, I have trouble with this pose because of balancing. Is there a preliminary pose before this that sort of works the way up to?
Well, I would say the balancing poses, asana into tree pose. All those that we did, Virabhasana. But then you
But raising the leg and grabbing hold of the toe is the most challenging.
Right.
So it would lower the leg, grabbing hold, and then it changes the pose, and it's totally different. So
Right.
there's nothing preliminary. It's
just this bent, or do you know?
Well, what about what you just told me? What about if you put the one foot, the one leg that's raised, that foot on the wall? Do you know what I'm saying? So if you stood up about legs width distance from this, yeah. Would that help? Like pretty much the same assist that we did in the tree with the knee, you know, kind of assist like that. Now roll your right thigh in.
You don't take the foot.
Oh.
Right. So now you're modifying. Now you're just.
oh,
So that's preparation, right? That
right.
Or if this was higher.
But does the left leg, but the leg is straight or bent?
Both
What's
straight.
it? It's
Now you
straight
can both straighten both legs.
now.
Now.
But when you're doing this,
When you're doing this, you could have the legs bent as a modification.
Could you use a strap?
You could use a strap. Would that work? But that doesn't address the
It doesn't
balance
address
as
the
much.
balance.
The balance helps with the foot on a ledge or on the wall.
Just practice up. No, only in terms of balance. In other words, if I have a couple of herniated discs that affect my left leg, so that no matter what balance pose I do, I'm always going to feel this, fluidity. I'm just wondering if that's something that's part of my anatomy. Would practice
Yes,
help?
yes,
Practice.
if it doesn't hurt.
Okay.
Did you get that? Yoga's like a sword. It will hurt you or help you.
Mhm.
So you have to know that.
How could it hurt?
Herniated disc. It could turn your hamstring. It could.
Oh, no. I thought for myself in this pose, like, if I can't get into it, I can't get into it.
Right.
There's nothing, my
Right.
body is telling me it ain't happening
That's
today,
right.
so.
Right, so the modifications will probably help you
Yes.
in all aspects. I'm just saying that it's a delicate
Yeah.
practice that you have to really listen. Am I going too far? Is this helping me? And we always are on that edge of, am I backing away because I'm afraid or not really, stepping up, or am I the other side pushing through and then I'm going to hurt myself? Have a children? She said, what do you do when you don't know what to do, what's right or wrong, and you're the only one that can know? What do? You try something, and then if it's not right, then you try the other thing. And that you really know that with compassion, I don't know what to do. Should I leave? I don't feel so well. Sometimes when I push through my yoga practice, I feel better. What do? Should I go home and take care of myself? Have you ever had that day? Should I go through to yoga? So then one day you go to yoga and you're like, yeah, that was great. Okay, so that was good for that day. And then another day you go to yoga and you're like, oh. But maybe
Well, I think after having said that, about my balance, I think that it probably will reflect it because I had a hard time thinking about it and putting it into verbal stuff. With feet parallel, standing tall, bend the right knee. With right arm, reach for right big toe, and extend right leg forward. Release toe lock and lower foot to the ground.
Can we add to that? How about the dog walker, because you're so nice? Anything you have to add?
Can you repeat what you said again? Because I got lost after you had your question. Even just the last part.
Sure. With feet parallel, standing tall, bend the right knee. With right arm, reach for right big toe and extend right leg forward. Release the toe lock and lower right foot to the ground.
I was just speaking to you, read about it, is to keep kind of like an upright back rather than kind of folding forward to kind of reach. But trying to, that's something that I had a problem with, is reaching rather than keeping it aligned.
Yeah, so keep your arm in your shoulder.
Yeah, that.
That's in addition. What's your name?
Oh, my name is Danielle.
Daniel.
Yeah.
Anything else?
I think that's about what I have. This one.
Anybody else have something to add?
Put your right hand inside.
Inside. Which doesn't always work for everyone as well. Isn't that better for you to have your arm on the outside? So that you really bring that knee in?
Right, like I was taking hold of the outside of the left foot, the center. So that helped. Yeah, that helped me.
So you can, that's a good, that is the theoretically correct way. And then to modify it, you might adjust that. You might take the outer edge, you might take the hand from the outer to the big toe because there's something going on where the knee is really out to the side like this, and here you're kind of reining it in before you straighten it.
Yeah.
Or just by taking the outer edge of the foot, there's more.
Yeah.
Stability.
A lot more feedback,
Right.
like turning the
the
femoral bone
Uh-huh,
inward.
Right.
Does that make sense?
yeah. And I've seen it like this too,
Yeah.
which I don't teach.
Can I ask a question about, I noticed that when you did the yoga toe lock,
Yeah.
it looked like you had more of an extension in your foot. And then I saw you had more of this flexion in your foot.
Good observation.
You know, is one preferable to the other, or are they just different ways of doing it? What are the benefits?
For me, it's preferable to have it what I call a yoga foot, and it's extended and yet the toes are coming back, because I use that foot to help me balance. And when it's completely flexed, I don't have as much sensitivity about, like when you're driving and you step on the gas, you feel it underneath your foot. So this is, to me, when I pull the toes back like this, I don't have as much range as when I can press through the big toe. Then it locks. There's tension between the hand and the foot. And my job is then to pull the arm back. So again, I'm bringing it into me and then standing up. As opposed to here, I lose connection. That's
Seems
me.
like you could hyperextend without.
I could hyperextend. Do you have a preference? Do you do any flexed or
Carla, I don't know.
you?
Do I have a preference?
Yeah.
I do all sorts of things. Sometimes I like to hold this, sometimes I like to hold this. But I actually have a question for Rebecca. From your anatomy class, is the foot or the what?
It's the ankle. It's the ankle that is
Extended.
It's
It's flexed when it's
This is This is extension, but it's plantar flexion.
Very good. So the common problems, lack of balance, or tight hamstrings, or the arm gets pulled out of the shoulder, or the standing leg bends, or the thigh bows out forward, or the chest collapse. It's all there on the notes.
It's funny though how in a forward bend, like, the hamstrings don't seem as tight as when you're doing it this way. I mean, it's really kind of the same pose, you just kind of, right? Just, I have a hard time straightening the leg, but I have no problem straightening the leg in a forward bend.
Well, you've added a couple complications. One, you're balancing. And then the gravity is different. You're having to work against gravity, where you're going with it into your legs. That could make it easier.
Is this a pose where it's essential to kind of keep your femur bones like a scissors? Because it
Yes.
seems like there's a lot of
Wavering, kind of drifting.
yeah. So really, you're kind of just hinging them. Okay, it's a lot easier to go out to the side than to go straight forward. I think is what I'm
For
getting
some.
at. Yeah.
For you.
For me.
Right. And that is where you open it out to the
Right.
side and bring it back to the front.
But
they're both
doing it
legs
with
are
an
internally
intention.
rotating, and you're keeping that midline, so you're not drifting.
I think what I'm doing is I have the intention to keep it in front of me, but it's easy to let it drift and let it drift a little further. And, you know, it's one thing to open with intention, it's
Right, and
another
then
thing
to drift.
to drift.
Yeah.
The drifter.
Well, that's the mind too, right? We're either, paying attention or we're desiring something, or pushing our way, or we're just sort of drifting. Kind of sort of not really here, not really there. The sharpness about focus, about bringing things to the midline. Anything, somebody else had?
I was just going to say that it was really helpful to me, focusing on two specific things that I think that you said. One, you've been saying in a few poses of drawing from the outside in, and then pulling up the pelvic floor muscles of the mula bandha. That was like really like kind of grounding or something like that. That was really
Oh, that's great.
yeah.
Excuse me.
And the hand on the hip, I'm not sure if anybody said that, that makes a difference to me, because it, just reminds me to stay
I think
straight.
there's a rootedness about that, and I think we kind of get a little drifty out here too. What is this doing? Here, it's like, oh, and this is what I see a lot.
Right.
This leg is more important than this leg. To bring the inner rotation, to bring the thigh back into the bone itself and really stand on that leg. I'm so sorry, it's like, as the day goes by, I'm like, ah.
Can I refill that?
Thank you.
And that's a hamstring, like, because I can't fully extend my leg
I'm
when I'm
with you.
standing.
Yes, I'm with you.
And I'm trying to keep this straight, but it's much better than to keep this knee bent,
Yes.
keep this straight.
That's right. So now working with a partner, this assist, if I work with you, tell me, Jessica, she's gonna come to standing, and I'm gonna assist her in the pose. Great, look at you. Bring your hands to your hip bones, and then bend your right knee and take Yogi Tawak. And then breathe in, bring the knee up, and then extend the leg. And here I am on her shelf. So I'm gonna bring underneath her, there, and help her. So you can lean on me. Yeah, there you go. Now she can refine it a little bit. She's really gonna step on those toes of her left foot. Yeah, that's it. And draw her right arm back into her socket. So she's trying to even her shoulders. You see how the right shoulder's in front? So she's gonna bring that, and I can even assist her a little bit by making sure that she doesn't. Shall we dance? That's me, and Elise is the. And I could do that with her leg bent too.
So what's more important, like if Jess can't bend her knee, can't extend
Extend
it.
it.
So what's more, it sounds really, I don't even know how to. So if I'm like this, but if I want to keep it long, then I have to go like that, so obviously it's really
That's
bad.
good.
So this is what I want to do in the end, and this is just where it is
Fine.
right now.
And I was gonna mention that a lot of times people bring their leg up and then they go down again.
Yeah.
And boy, is it hard to come up from here. And then, so if you can bring your foot up to your hand, and then bring your arm into your shoulder, and then bring your thigh before I've even done anything, then I might just be here.
Okay.
So it's quite hip flexion. So if you have tight hip flexors, that's also a limitation.
Okay.
Yeah, that you can't get this in so far.
That's helped a lot. I get this just looser doing that.
Doing that.
Yeah,
Right.
just being able to
Do that.
do this
And that's,
helps so much.
yes, on the floor is really nice. Then you're not working with your back.
Right.
And then you can really move this. And Supta Pada Vistasana, and here you are on the ground doing that pose that you were just standing up doing. So you practice this alignment here, and you really, try to sense how that would translate to standing up. So work with a partner and be their shelf. Is that helpful?
Yeah, very.
And then I stepped on Holly's foot, the one on the ground, because, again, I'm looking at her foundation. And the foundation was like that, wasn't it? So I just stepped on her foot. She said, so you look at your student's foundation a lot, to help them from the ground up. This is unstable, and this is tenuous. I like it to collapse. So I just wrapped one arm around her waist and stepped on her foot. Okay, I think we'll end the asana part. We'll come back to the Yoga Sutras. And if you look at your sheet number 5, my favorite.
Really good question. What translation? Is this your translation?
I think this might be Lasseter's translation. But I have a Yoga Sutra study group in one of my studios, and we use as many as we can get.
They're really different.
They're really different because it's a translation. The one that you might be interested in is Georg Fierstein.
Yes.
And he passed away a few weeks ago. And he is very interesting because he really, really translates as accurately as possible just the Sanskrit. So his commentary is little. You can look to other commentaries, but the Sanskrit is really interesting. I personally love V.K.S. Iyengar because he's poetic. So he says things that are like, beautiful. I like Edwin's because it's scholarly, and it'll probably take me through the next life to read half of it. He's a fascinating scholar. He really went historically to the earlier commentators, but it's always through their interpretation, isn't it? So you have to know that when you're looking at the translations. And we sit around and we just share each of us have a different book. We're like, oh, this one says this one says that one. And then really we say, how does that affect my life? We ask ourselves questions a lot. So that it's not so much of a scholarly view as a manual for us. So this number 5, Maitri Karuna, Mudita Upekshanam, Sukha Dukkha Punya Punya, Bhavanata Stita Prasadanam. Buddhism and the sutras have a lot in common. So Buddhism also uses the word Maitri, and they use I think they slightly do like upeksha. They spell it a little differently, but they're all concerned, both of those, with the mind and also with, these are the actions to connect you to someone that Patanjali is saying, yes, it's important that you have a relationship, and how you can work with people is unlimited friendliness, not only compassion, karuna, but a tenderness, so that it's not pity, oh, you poor thing. No, it's like, I walk in your shoes, I understand. Mudita, which might be the most difficult, to take joy in others' joy. I'm so happy you got the job I wanted. You know? Upekshanam, another favorite word for me, being undisturbed by yourself and by others. Equanimity. Now, I don't enjoy a lot of the translations. Mr. Iyengar says indifference to evil or something, and I'm like,
It's terrible.
that's not compassionate. But he's in a different world, generation, etc. And now I feel like, no, it's not indifference. I actually want to care more. But I don't want to lose my equanimity in the face of that. I don't have to be off balance to care about you.
So in what you just said, you also talked about equanimity to the self, to yourself, which is interesting because in the Bryant, at least, that's not, the self is not in there. All that he says there here is equanimity toward those who are non-virtuous. So in other words, looking at if the people to whom you would be judgmental, but it doesn't say here, and don't be judgmental on yourself either. So is that your interpretation?
Yeah,
Is that
it's not mine, but I don't know where I picked that up from. That somebody said that, I was like, of course. It's us, you know, I'm more often disturbed by myself, and then other people disturb me. If I'm undisturbed, then people can do what they do. Like, you can have your opinion, you know, you can agree with me or not, and that's okay. But if I'm disturbed, I see that in you. Attack.
I just want to say I have a friend named Maitri. She told me that it means feminist to oneself. Like the translation of that actually.
So it's a loving kindness, that's another translation in Buddhism. Like me with Maitri practice, a loving kindness practice. May I be well, may I be at peace. So they include the self as well as may you be well, may you be at peace, may you live with health and ease. That in loving kindness practices, it's generally someone that you feel very warmly towards, a mentor or a teacher who's giving you something. It's easy to say, may you be well, may you be happy. Someone that you are neutral about, you get gas from this person, you see that you don't really know them, may you be well, may you be happy. And then someone that you have a hard time with, it's disturbing to you, may you be well. And then to yourself, which often people find the most difficult, wishing themselves well. So this is a purification, they say, of your feelings and your relationship with others to practice these in the face of duality. That's what it's talking about, sukha, dukkha, punya, apunya, pleasure, pain, virtue, non-virtue. And I just hate these, sinful creatures. It's not in my thinking these days. Because love includes everybody. Love is in love with itself. So when we're talking about love and generosity, then you wouldn't do that. So let's repeat after me. You can close your eyes. Maitri,
Maitri,
Karuna,
Karuna,
Mudita,
Mudita,
Upekshanam,
Upekshanam,
Sukha,
Sukha,
Dukkha,
Dukkha,
Punya,
Punya,
Apunya,
Apunya,
Vishayanam,
Vishayanam,
Bhavanathas,
Bhavanathas,
Chitta,
Chitta,
Prasadanam,
Prasadanam.
Just the 4 first words. Maitri, Karuna, Mudita, mudita upekshanam.
Maitri karuna mudita upekshanam.
Maitri karuna mudita upekshanam.
Maitri karuna mudita upekshanam.
So practice. I invite you the next time you're on the subway, as you sit there, that you can look at everybody and go, maybe do well. To yourself. Yeah. You do it out loud, but it is here. Be healthy. And see how what happiness that brings you when we practice that, when we change our mind. So skipping a little bit to the second chapter, chapter 2, number 1, 7. Number 7 on your sheet. Tapas Jaya Ishvara Pranidhanaha. Kriya Yoga.
Yeah, 6 on our sheet.
6 on yours. Sorry. Yoga in action. Karma yoga. Karma yoga. Kriya yoga. Kriya yoga is tapas Jaya Ishvara Pranidhanaha. They're also in the 8 limbs. Tapas Jaya Ishvara Pranidhanaha. So tapas is that. Well, it's many different translations. I love the translation of tapas being simplicity, which requires a certain discipline for you to, clear out your house, throw away things that you don't need anymore. There's a little bit of fire about that, a little bit of resistance. When you open your mat and come to practice, depending on the day, sometimes there's a struggle going on. There's some heat, there's some passion about practice. That's tapas. Svadhyaya, self-study, study of the text, what you're doing right now. Svadhyaya. Ishvara Pranidhanaha, surrender to God, surrender to the divine. And that brings in that is part of the Yoga Sutras, as Patanjali is talking about and teaching about the Lord. And that is often controversial or unsettling, uncomfortable for people, right? Especially if you have a different religion and then you come across this and then it rubs up against that. But you can use the word divine, the supreme, the absolute, but you can also use the word God, surrender to God. The devotion, they say, is a shortcut to liberation. If you can surrender yourself to God, it's a shortcut. If you can't, then you do all these other things. So most of us have to do all these other things. We can't really do that yet. And we're householders and we have lives and it's enough that we can practice a certain amount of time every day, right? Kriya yoga.
Wouldn't it be a matter of how your definition of surrender? I mean, part of my definition would be just saying I'm not going to control everything. So it doesn't have to be to a higher being, but just really trying every day, every minute of every day.
One interesting translation is that Ishvara Pranidhanaha is reality. That you surrender to reality, like what you're saying. I like that a lot. It's like reality, if you try to argue, when's the last time you argued with reality? Did you win? No. You never win.
The car breaks down in the parking lot and they say it's 2 hours for a tow. So what do? Do I go through 120 minutes of my life, my energy,
That just
pressing the
happened to
power
me
button?
and poor me and I should have been, there, now I'm here, or
I went into the supermarket and did some
made the
shopping.
best of the situation. She surrendered to reality, which is always kinder than our ideas about it.
It didn't hurt so much. It really does.
Yeah, so I think that this is like also bringing it. I asked you to suspend the modern gaze, and then I also want you to be intelligent about how to bring it into your life. That this is not an abstract, like, oh yeah, they did that back then, and now it doesn't make any sense to me. That we actually have to be creative and keep looking and talking and discussing and arguing about these points so that they can work for us. and that you work with the mind. Tapas means to burn, austerity, or discipline. Anybody have any other translations of that? So tapas, simplicity, I was saying. Svadhyaya, reflection. Another translation. Yeah, not only self-study and study of the text, but it's asking us to reflect and contemplate these things. And the Gita says that we're meant to be thoughtful. First they use the word man is meant to be thoughtful. That's what I wanted to read you. Barbara Stoller, she says, in her translation, she talks about, in the Indian view, that the practitioner of yoga is not a passive person, but a spiritual hero who is active and potent. Chandula is a princess. This is a story, a parable. An extraordinary beauty who was married in her youth to a neighboring prince and who later became his spiritual teacher. In Indian culture, it is not unusual to hear of loving couples who turn to spiritual pursuits when the pleasures of the flesh wane, nor is it rare for a woman to achieve spiritual perfection. Contrary to popular belief, contrary to the Bhagavad Gita and those texts that are all about men. And there's no women in there except for being abducted.
Do you mind reading that again? Sorry.
The whole thing.
Yeah.
Chandula, an extraordinary beauty who was married in her youth to a neighboring prince and who later became his spiritual teacher. In Indian culture, it's not unusual to hear of loving couples who turn to spiritual pursuits, nor is it rare for a woman to achieve spiritual perfection. Through her yogic practice, Chudala had acquired great psychic and physical powers. She could take any form she chose and project it by means of her thought. She assumed the form of a young ascetic who appeared before her husband as he wandered in the forest and offered herself as his teacher. And there's more stories like that. If you start to investigate some of the feminists that have rewritten some of the texts they have discovered. Well, she had the power to do that, and in order for him to pay attention, she did that. And then she taught him what he needed to do, and then he reached enlightenment.
And did she reveal herself?
You know, it doesn't say. It doesn't say. Well, maybe it does. Let me look.
Gotcha.
Right?
We're going in. Wasn't there a story like that in the book that we read here, where
Yes.
where they is that the same story?
That sounds familiar.
They get married and then she becomes his teacher.
But I don't think she disguised herself.
No.
No, it was like, he like wasn't paying attention to her, and he like, oh, she's so foolish, and she was laughing at him.
She found her boring or too even keel. They couldn't understand why she wasn't more, I guess, flamboyant or whatever. But
Right, that was it, she was right.
Right, it's in there.
I gotta find it in here now.
It doesn't say she revealed him herself. There's quite a few women scholars that have found a lot of stories about women and spirituality and nuns, and so I find that inspiring because I notice it's very difficult to find that, for one thing, and that when I question men, often they don't really know how to answer me. They're like, well, I'm sure it means it includes women. No. So we're trying to look into that. So that's chapter 2. Then we get into, I guess it's number 7, chapter 2, verse 3. Some of the obstacles, the kleshas, more than obstacles. Ignorance, aversion, desire, fear of death, ego, avidya, asmita, raga, dvesha, abhinivesha. So avidya is basically the ground of ignorance, and not that you don't have knowledge, but ignorance of your true self. You are, you have forgotten, and that asmita is ego, which I would say might even be before ignorance, but I'm not in charge. Avidya, asmita, ego, raga, dvesha, those are two sides of the same coin. You either want something to last forever because it feels good, or you abhor it and you're trying to get rid of it and get it out of your life. And then even the wise, they say, are afraid of death. That there's a fear of death, clinging to life, a clinging to life. So
Is it fear of your own death or fear of somebody else's death?
Your own, is my understanding. In the Bhagavad Gita, Yudhisthira is the king of the hero of the good guys, Yudhisthira, and he says that's maybe the eighth wonder of the world, that people are dying all around one, and one believes that it's not going to happen to them. That is astounding to him. It's like, how could that be? It's frightening. It's hard to grasp. You don't know what's going to happen. There's nobody that can tell you what's going to happen. So there's the practice and investigation and shraddha, a certain amount of faith that the teachings and the wise teachers are giving us the correct information. So surrender is also a tricky word in our language. We don't like it. Surrender means that you don't have any power and you give it up. Do you think that's true?
Maybe transfer. That's nice.
Right. And is that a good thing? Bad thing? Can be.
Means you have trust.
Mm-hmm. So again, that's the power of discernment, discrimination. Is this a good thing for me? Am I entrusting my faith in someone that is trustworthy? And you know the yoga world. We constantly put people up in a place that they should not do anything wrong in our eyes, and then are constantly disappointed when they did. Oh, how could he have done that? It's like, because he's human. And then we have to come back to the ethics. That's not okay. So I can love you to pieces. I do not have to stay here anymore. I'm going to leave you. You're no longer my teacher. Because in a teacher, I expect that you hold to an ethical principle. Not that I should execute you. But I don't have to stay. That's intelligence, and that's a loving, warm, love you to pieces, I'm leaving. You don't stay in an abusive relationship. You leave. You can leave.
What do they call that, like, always in yoga, or when I think about the sutras, and you can think about it the opposite way, so there's always like a balance.
Turn it upside down.
Yeah, because if you think about, like, so let's say you have no fear of death. Let's say you want to die. So you don't have a fear of death. You know what I mean? So it's almost like there's that thing where it's just a very
right. It's like the precipice or something. Yeah, because otherwise it's the duality. Then it's just the other side of the same.
And it's funny that your brain can quite easily, a healthy person's brain can sort of feel whenever you want.
Whenever you want, like it's like, ooh, you can see both sides. Very fascinating. So there would be the person like, I want to die, which is the person like, I don't want to die. And then that little point of both or neither. And I was thinking about, when you just said that, I lost it, sorry. turning things upside down, that's the beauty of the yoga practice. We literally do that. We do headstand, handstand, forearm stand, shoulder stand. We turn things upside down to get a different view. You know, we're sometimes looking at it from a different point of the diamond, things look differently. They also use that image in the sutras of crystal. It's very beautiful. And if I could find it in Iyengar, that's one of his moments where he shines. Where when you put a crystal down on a table next to a rose, it appears red. Crystal is not red. It is a reflection, but the crystal has its own integrity. It doesn't stay red when the rose is gone, which is an increase in character. It's not a lack of character. It's like, I'm nothing and therefore I reflect everything around me and I don't have any. No, you have more character. You have nothing to hide. You're vulnerable in the best sense of the word. That would be cleaning house. That you have nothing to hide. Can you imagine never being embarrassed by yourself again? There's a certain transparency, like what you see is what you get.
Beautiful.
So beautiful.
It's very young.
And we get clothed and we get protected and we get armored and we're gonna, it's my house and it's my stuff and it's my problems and I'm not, And that the yoga again, it's like chipping away, it's letting go so that my house is glass now. That you can see, here I am. Sitting, standing, lying down, or walking. Not many other things. Do you have any questions so far? And so much, I don't want to blow your mind out. But there is one that I loved a lot that I put in here. I think I did. It's from the third chapter. It's about the heart.
11.
11.
We share the same.
We say to share the same love with that.
Yep.
It's chapter 3, number 11.
No, it's verse 35.
35. Yeah, it's number 11 on our. We're around between 33 and 34, 35. Right. I think there's different books.
Yeah.
One of them's 34, one of them's 35. So by Samyama, remember I said Samyama was integration. So by integration, by meditation, by concentration, by absorbing on the region of the heart, the yogi acquires a thorough knowledge of the contents and tendencies of consciousness. There it is. It's through our own heart. They say if you want to become organized and centered, then you meditate on the navel. So that's the center of you. You want to know the contents of the being. If you want to know the thorough knowledge of the contents and tendencies of consciousness, meditate on the heart.
When you say meditate on heart, exactly what do you mean by that?
Exactly what do I mean by that? I sometimes think I'm not even meditating on the heart, I'm meditating in the heart. So there's that back to you with the green aqua pants. Yes, your name is?
Iri.
Pardon?
I-R-R-I-T.
Iri.
Yeah.
Iri, it's like, I can't feel that yet. Like if I observe my breath, I can't feel it. I feel my breath, I can't observe it. To meditate in the heart, to feel inside of the heart is a different logistics and logical approach than what we usually do. It's like I can meditate on this because I can see it, I can hold it. Here's something that you cannot see or hold. How do you meditate on that? I think it's very personal.
So, by heart, you don't really mean anatomical heart, you mean emotion?
I do, I mean the center of you. Yeah, I mean your emotional center, your center of love. It's not the anatomical heart, not the pump. I don't think that would be bad if you wanted to see if your heartbeat was even or any of those things. You could go really, you could kind of meditate on yourself. But if you meditate on your emotional center, And sometimes I do this. So that I give myself a little tactile, like close as I can. I can feel the heartbeat. What does that mean to you? What does that mean to you? What is your heart center? People say all the time, what is your heart? What's your heart center? What does that mean to you? Yes.
I just wanted to share this because I think it's really beautiful, and I know a lot of people have the same book that I'm using, The Heart of Yoga. But his translations are not always artistic at
No.
all. They're often very nuts and bolts, but his
There's a lot of
commentary.
misspellings. Yes.
His commentary for this particular sutra is, it is only when we are quiet and calm that this is possible, referring to the sutra. And then he says, we cannot see the color of the water in the lake if the lake is turbulent. I just think that's a really beautiful phrase.
So we have to. So the pose of that would be legs up the wall. You come into Karani, it's called inverted leg of the mind. That the mind becomes so quiet that you can see into the depths. That the lake would become so still that you could see into, or you could see what was reflected, like the moon in the lake, or the trees on the lake reflected on the surface. that even the bottom sand of the lake is not rippled with your 50s. The sand is smooth. Wow, it gives you a whole different approach to that pose. He says, the citadel of Purusha is the heart. The citadel of Purusha is the heart. It is Anahata chakra, the seat of pure knowledge as well as of consciousness. By Samyama, a yogi can become aware of consciousness and a true pure knowledge. She learns to unfold and tap the source of her being and identify herself with the Supreme, or with reality. Yeah. So the third chapter gets more esoteric. The first chapter is like, this is what can happen. Second chapter is, here's how you do it. Third is, here's some of the powers that you can experience. And the fourth is even more about liberation and mystery. Fourth chapter is called Kaivalya, emancipation, liberation. So the sutras have 4 padas, 4 feet, 4 chapters. They are Samadhi pada, Sadhana pada, Vibhuti pada, and Kaivalya pada. So that might be a nice place to end. I'd like to leave the last 15 minutes for you. Is that? No. To ask questions about teaching, about yoga, about the sutras, an open forum for observation or anything that you want to share.
Are there poses, so the sutras, are there poses or multiple poses for each of the sutras, or is it a person's interpretation of that sutra?
Yes, the sutras assume that you have a body of knowledge about yoga, and they don't specify. The Hatha Yoga Pratipaka gives specific poses, and that's more a manual of the physical practices that you would do, the seated poses, the kriyas, the purifying practices, the pranayama practices that will lead you to meditation, but not the sutras.
Have you yourself, if you don't mind me asking, ever built a class around, or do you build your classes around the sutras?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. I often will, if I did not necessarily build my class around it, but I will use it in the beginning.
Okay.
I will talk about a sutra and then perhaps weave in the speaking during the class, because it's there. I don't have to make it up. Right? To interpret it a little bit and make it accessible to a class. I know.
Must
To
be
a class
true.
of all levels, often all levels, you know, that have different relationships to text, and so I don't spend hours at the beginning of class, but just brief, like something like this meditation on the heart, and then I meditate for a few moments and then move into the practice.
Thank you.
So I always do chanting in a Dharma talk. It's called a Dharma talk. You use that. Or talk a little bit, share a story, or use a teaching from the sutras or the Gita, or read a poem that's short. Inspiration, I use a lot of things that are happening in science, because they're studying the mind so much now. So I'll say, gosh, did you hear this? You know, 3 mice walk into a bar. No. They did a study about, there's one group of mice that they gave, all the great food and the little exercise, right? And one group of mice that just had the exercise wheel, and one that didn't have any great food or no exercise wheel. And the ones that got smarter were the ones that had the exercise. Didn't matter whether you had great food or music or little nibbly toys or anything like that. If you weren't exercising, the mind does not get smarter. The ones that didn't have anything slept the most. So I love bringing in science, the Science Times, and saying this and that, and because people are very open to science. Science, the New York Times says it, okay, it must be true. It's like, no, it's been saying that for thousands of years.
So we talked a little bit about the relationship between the teacher and student way back when, and I'm having trouble trying to figure out, we're obviously living in a different time, right? Like, I'm not gonna come and live in your house for a while, or anybody else's house. So I'm just wondering, like, what is the relationship now between a teacher and a student?
And it's probably different as each teacher and student. There's some yoga now that is not interested in any of the history or the teachings. They want to divorce it from that. And then there's yoga that is trying to be more authentic and bring in the historic teachings and texts and history. There are teachers that are out for themselves. There are teachers that are egotistical, all this. Then there's teachers that are serving their students. That their joy comes from your joy. And that I teach often because I learn so much, and I feel a great responsibility to my students that I keep studying. It keeps me alive, and I keep reading and wanting to share things with them, and I'm not trying to fool them, thinking that I'm smarter than I am, which in the beginning maybe I was a little bit. I don't know what I was teaching in the very beginning. It was kind of scary. It was probably not yoga. It was just like, but then at the time when I started teaching, nobody was really knowing what they were doing. There was no teacher training programs. Can you imagine? You just started teaching. Usually with a blessing of your teacher, but you just started teaching. There was no teacher training programs. It was amazing. So there's that responsibility, that ethical servant devotion, and caring for their well-being, students' well-being. So, and being transparent. I'm trying to be more and more transparent of, like, telling them the sources, where I'm getting this from, sharing that, and sometimes just passing on the teachings that I haven't even completely digested. Ramit said, do you teach poses that you cannot do yourself? So that's big for a teacher. And the answer is maybe. I can teach poses where I can use a student to demonstrate. I can teach poses where I can almost do them, but I understand the principles very well. And there are some poses that I cannot accomplish them. I don't do them. I don't teach them. And that's a loss for my students, and I hope they get that with another teacher. But there's just some of those advanced poses I'm not going to be able to do this life. So I don't know how to teach them yet. Yeah.
Just a little question, but I noticed in the Judith Lasser book, she makes big point every time about saying,
Or
is that permission to touch a student? And I'm just wondering if you could talk about that a little bit, because I don't tend to, I've heard some teachers do it as a kind of a group thing. I like to touch people, so you need to tell me if you don't want to be touched. And I'm just sort of curious to
I struggle with it a bit, and I won't go to that edge where I ask someone every time I'm going to teach them. I have a body of students that I see all the time. I live upstate, we don't have a lot of choice. So I do develop a strong relationship. If there's someone new, often I don't touch them until I get to know them. And sometimes I'll touch someone without even saying anything. I just walk right up and touch them. Because I'm so comfortable with myself. If they say, don't touch me, I'm like, okay. And I've had people like, bristle and yell at me. In the beginning I would cry later, and now I'm like, absolutely. Or I feel like eyes and ears and mouth and my hands, that when I approach them, it's not like that. I approach them and I listen, and through my hand I can go, this is okay. And then I can go, that's not okay. And I'll walk on. Have a great day, namaste. Because people bristle. Sometimes people bristle, and they're the very ones that would wish that you would go in, and I can kind of tell that now. And I'll just stay with them. Go. So it's a funny thing, isn't it? It's a body practice. A lot of people assume that there's physical touch involved. Maybe not, maybe that's not true. But there is, we've kind of stripped down to like less clothes and bare feet, and I think that some people will not come because of that. So they already self-select themselves out of the picture. But I'm very concerned with ethics and touch and responsibility. But I can injure someone by just coming up and looking at them, because they go deeper with my gaze than they were ready to. So it's very tricky, Yes.
Is it a good thing to, in beginning classes, to have other students or other teachers come in and help you with adjusting people, assisting? I've been to schools where, there's the teacher, and then they have other teachers there, or I guess student teachers, who come in and adjust, when you're in poses.
It's nice. It can be really, really nice, and especially if it's a huge class, and there's no way you can give people personal attention, and that's a really nice way. And if it's a teacher, or when we do teacher trainings, often we'll have the teacher trainees in the back, and they assist each other. Half of them practice, half of them assist during the class, but we don't ask them to touch the regular students. People are bristly about it sometimes. We don't trust the students yet. So that's one way.
Is there any liability now, where like...
Well, there's always liability. And I don't know if you have waivers
Is
that
it like a
sign.
Yeah, and the teachers have insurance. We'll go over
So
that.
there's insurance for teachers, there's liability forms that students fill out, and it doesn't preclude lawsuit.
Another question?
Tell us who your teachers were. Oh, sure. I'm a choreographer dancer, so I started yoga when I was touring, and I was recommended to Eddie Stern, who teaches Ashtanga in New York City. So I studied with Eddie for a few years, and I did Ashtanga religiously, which is the only way to do it, really, 6 days a week. And I very quickly went to India and studied with Pattabhi Joyce.
Oh, wow.
And then very interested in alignment and being able to articulate as a teacher. I started teaching very young, very early, and not young, but because I'd been teaching dance, I just sort of went into teaching yoga, and I wanted to be able to articulate alignment and be I was very interested in that. started studying with Jimmy Capular, a younger, senior, younger teacher. And then I really studied with John Friend and Shiva Ray and anybody that was sort of teaching, or I would go for an immersion or a week or do unofficial teacher trainings. I study a lot with Carrie Orko in the city right now. She's a senior younger teacher. But for years and years I studied somatic training. I did somatic training. I studied with Susan Klein and Barbara Mahler. They have the Klein technique, which is akin to, it's not like it, but Alexander, Feldenkrais, those are somatic studies. So I, as a dancer, was very interested in the body, any aspect of the body, any which way or form. So I always joke, and I spent like 2.5 years like this. So, meditation. My sister is a Buddhist. So when I was before yoga, when I was very young in my teens, I would follow her around. She was going to Naropa and Karmacholing and Rocky Mountain Dharma Center, and at the center, and I would pretend to meditate. And then I was like, and then I found yoga dance, and I was like, really, I'm very physical and active, and now I'm coming back to sitting more, formal Buddhist meditation practice. And that also is seems to be that certain paths that meditation, as you calm the body, as you work with the body, you're able to sit and look at the mind. Yeah.
Just another personal question. You mentioned you had a son.
Yes.
And I'm just putting myself in his place and thinking, what a great kid he must be. But now I teach in a college situation, and these students are the average student who focuses on technology, doesn't know to look in the heart, doesn't really want to be a part of that. For the next generation, how are you teaching your son, and how can I go into a classroom? Some of us are teaching different grades and so forth, and bring this to another generation. Because if it stops with us, then, or a handful, it's sort of like, not to say that we're going to go out there and, proselytize everybody, but wouldn't it be lovely to be able to get a point across of don't lie or don't cheat and don't steal? We've all done that since the 10 Commandments, we know that. But for these students that we really have hands-on abilities to be right.
That's a challenge, isn't it? I mean, it's different with your child than a group of college students.
Do you see your child as different when he's in a situation than other children?
Well, he has, there are some like-minded, and he has gravitates towards that, but he has had, I think, a very open, questioning, heart-centered upraising. So he's an unusual, to me, and I was wrong, but he's an unusual, thoughtful boy. He's not afraid of looking into his heart, and he expresses his feelings. He's very thoughtful. He said to me on Yom Kippur, because I was saying, the Jewish religion is the Day of Atonement, and you can ask for forgiveness to someone you might have harmed, even if they're not there. And he said, I'm going to ask forgiveness for someone that I might have harmed, but it might not be because I did anything wrong. And I was like, it took me 55 years. Really? Because he's had someone in his life that gets very angry at him and expresses that, and he's realizing it's not because he's doing anything. But he still wants to ask forgiveness because he can see he's causing them harm even though he did not responsible. So anyway, that's one example. And I just think we have to live by example. We have to say these things out loud and share fun stories. Parable is a great way. So it's not like I'm telling you this, But here's a story about this woman and look what she did, and that can be a teaching tool.
I found myself bringing into class, I used to be, I'm not going to reveal to my students, that I'm involved in yoga or I do meditation or so forth. And this semester I said, I'm going to write that down. And I went in there and a couple of the students got that glimmer in their eye. That
They were interested.
there was an interest, but also it made me seem like a different person than what they expected.
Cool
Well,
now.
but there's a children's book that I used to read to my kids, where does the teacher go home after class? And, this little kid followed the teacher, and hey, it's a home, and she has a dog, and she walks the dog, and all that kind of
You
thing.
become real.
It becomes much more real.
You have an inner life.
Yes,
That you reveal that you have an inner life.
and that was really.
And then they
great.
might feel like, well, maybe I have one. I haven't looked before. You don't look that different from me. Maybe I have an inner life.
And there's nothing scary. It's not going to be punished down there.
Right.
I have faith in the young people that they'll find a way, like we all.
I have faith.
I do. So what, we were doing different things back then instead of like technology, we were doing different things.
Not consciously, too. Right, we made it. So the spirit cannot be kept down. So why don't we, sorry, I think it's 10, right? We could, see, I said I'm sorry. I'm really trying to cut out. I'm trying to cut out kinda, maybe, I'm sorry if I